She woke up to the soft light of the morning filtering through her curtains, the city outside slowly coming alive with its usual rhythm. She stretched and yawned, feeling the familiar comfort of her small but cozy apartment. Her life was simple, predictable, and safe, and she liked it that way. The scent of freshly brewed coffee reached her from the kitchen, where her small coffee machine was already working its magic. She had a routine she followed every day: wake up, make coffee, check messages, and then head out for work or her usual errands. Today, however, would be different, though she could not have known it yet. After a quick shower, she dressed in her favorite casual outfit, a simple t-shirt and jeans, and tied her hair back loosely. She glanced at herself in the mirror, feeling a small rush of contentment at the reflection smiling back. There was a confidence in her eyes, the kind of quiet strength that came from knowing her life was orderly and under control. She grabbed her bag and headed out, locking the door behind her, a small ritual that always gave her a sense of security. The streets were busy as usual. People moved with purpose. Cars honked in the distance, and the hum of city life filled her ears. She enjoyed these small observations, the way a street musician played the guitar with a passion that seemed larger than the city itself, or how a baker waved at his customers as he carefully placed fresh bread in the window. She often smiled at these little moments, finding comfort in the everyday life around her. She had a short walk to her favorite coffee shop, a place she visited every morning. The barista knew her name and her order by heart. As she approached, she noticed the familiar smell of roasted coffee beans and the warm, inviting atmosphere that made her feel at ease. She greeted the barista with a smile, exchanged a few friendly words, and received her cup of coffee. She found a small table near the window, the perfect spot to watch the world go by while she sipped her drink. As she sat there, she noticed a few things that were slightly unusual. A man lingered near the corner of the street, seemingly watching people pass by. His presence was not threatening at first glance, but something about the way he moved, the way his eyes scanned the crowd, gave her a small shiver. She shook it off, telling herself she was probably just overthinking. After all, it was easy to let imagination run wild in the quiet moments before the day truly began. She finished her coffee and stepped back into the flow of the city. Her steps were confident, her mind calm, as she headed toward the small office building where she worked. The building was a short walk away, and she liked the predictability of this route. Along the way, she greeted a few familiar faces, small interactions that made her feel connected to the world around her. There was a sense of community in these tiny exchanges, a reassurance that life was moving forward just as it should. At work, her day began with the usual tasks: answering emails, organizing documents, and coordinating with her colleagues. She enjoyed her job not because it was extraordinary, but because it was reliable. She liked knowing what to expect, and today, she felt that sense of control more than ever. She moved through her responsibilities with ease, occasionally looking out the window to catch glimpses of the bustling streets below. Lunch break came, and she stepped out to grab a quick bite. She chose a small sandwich shop she had visited many times before. The owner greeted her warmly, and she smiled back, appreciating the familiarity. As she ate, she noticed again the same man from earlier, now standing near a nearby building, seemingly waiting for something or someone. Her stomach tightened slightly, an unease she couldn't quite place. She tried to focus on her sandwich, convincing herself that she was imagining things. The afternoon passed uneventfully, and she was glad for it. There was comfort in routine, in the predictability of tasks being completed and deadlines being met. Yet a part of her mind remained alert, a faint whisper that something felt off. She shook it off again, telling herself that life was full of little coincidences and that there was no reason to worry. Still, she felt a small tension in her shoulders, a subtle reminder that the world could be unpredictable despite her careful planning. As the workday ended, she packed her bag and prepared to leave. The streets were bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun, casting long shadows and painting everything in warm hues. She walked with her usual steps, but now her eyes scanned the surroundings a bit more carefully. The man was gone, she noticed, but the memory of his lingering gaze stayed with her. She told herself it was over, that there was no reason to fear. Yet she could not completely shake the feeling that something was about to change. She decided to take a slightly different route home, winding through quieter streets lined with trees and small shops. The change of scenery was refreshing, giving her a sense of calm and control. Birds chirped in the trees, and the gentle rustle of leaves in the evening breeze made her feel connected to the world in a serene way. She breathed deeply, letting the air fill her lungs, enjoying the simple pleasure of being outside, of moving through a world that felt familiar and safe. Her thoughts wandered to her family and friends, the people she cared about, and the life she had built for herself. She thought about the little joys that made life meaningful, the laughter of a friend, the warmth of a sunny day, the taste of her favorite dessert. These small moments reminded her that life, though sometimes unpredictable, was filled with beauty and hope. She smiled at these thoughts, feeling a sense of gratitude for the life she had, simple yet rich in its own way. As she neared her apartment, the streets grew quieter, and the last rays of the sun disappeared behind the buildings. She unlocked her door and stepped inside, feeling the familiar comfort of her home envelop her. The soft hum of the city outside seemed distant now, and she felt a sense of peace as she set her bag down and made herself comfortable. She reflected on the day, appreciating its ordinariness, the routine that gave her a sense of security. Yet, even in this quiet moment, a small unease lingered at the edge of her mind. It was a whisper, faint but persistent, hinting that the calm she had taken for granted might not last forever. She tried to push it aside, focusing on the comfort of her surroundings, the warmth of her home and the familiar rhythm of her life. She did not yet know that the ordinary day she had cherished so much was about to take a sudden and unexpected turn. What had seemed like just another peaceful day was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. The world outside, once predictable and safe, was preparing to remind her that life could be unpredictable, dangerous, and full of surprises. The evening started like any other, with the city glowing softly under the streetlights. She had just settled into her apartment, making herself a small snack, when she heard a faint sound outside the window. It was almost imperceptible, a shuffle, a whisper of movement, but it made her pause. She turned her head toward the window, straining her eyes to see in the dim light. The streets were quiet, unusually so, and at first she saw nothing out of the ordinary. She shook her head, telling herself she was imagining things, but the small knot of unease in her stomach refused to go away. She tried to focus on something else, picking up a book she had been reading. The words on the page blurred slightly as her mind lingered on the earlier feeling of discomfort. Something about today had been off, though she had tried to ignore it. She took a deep breath, convincing herself that she was safe in her apartment, that nothing could happen here. Yet the feeling persisted, a quiet warning echoing in the back of her mind. Minutes later, she heard it again, a sound that made her heart skip. This time it was closer, coming from the alley beside her building. She froze, listening intently. Footsteps, careful but deliberate, echoed in the narrow space between buildings. Her mind raced. Who could it be? Why were they here? She moved closer to the window, trying to see, but the shadows made it impossible to identify anything clearly. Panic rose slowly, a creeping sensation that made her stomach tighten and her hands tremble slightly. Her first instinct was to call someone, anyone. She grabbed her phone and dialed, but as she brought it to her ear, she realized the line was dead. A cold wave of fear ran over her. The city outside, usually comforting in its noise and activity, now seemed distant and indifferent. She was alone, and the sense of isolation made the danger feel more immediate. She set the phone down, trying to think rationally. Lock the doors, stay inside, wait for the sound to pass. Simple steps, but her mind raced with possibilities. She checked the locks on her doors and windows, double and triple checking each one. Everything was secure, but the sound outside continued intermittently, as if someone was moving with purpose around her building. She felt trapped in her own home, a place that had always felt safe. The realization that safety could be an illusion struck her hard. Fear gnawed at the edges of her courage, and she felt a growing sense of urgency. She had to find a way out to ensure she was truly safe. She decided to move to a room with fewer windows, hoping it would offer better protection. Her bedroom seemed the most secure, with solid doors and minimal access points. She gathered her phone again, hoping for a signal, but it remained silent. She paced back and forth, trying to calm her racing thoughts, but the fear refused to be contained. Every creak of the building, every rustle of the wind outside sounded amplified, turning the ordinary into the threatening. Suddenly, a loud bang came from the front door. She gasped, pressing herself against the wall, trying to make herself as small as possible. Her mind went blank for a moment. the reality of the danger hitting her fully. This was no longer a simple feeling of unease. Someone was here and they intended to do something. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat loud enough to echo in her ears. She had to act, but the options seemed limited. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but deep down, a small spark of determination remained. She could not give in to fear entirely. She remembered the small emergency window in her bedroom that led to a fire escape. It wasn't ideal, but it offered a potential escape route. She moved carefully, listening for any sound from the intruder. The building groaned under the weight of the city, the wind whipping against the walls, and she realized that every second counted. She opened the window slowly, careful not to make a sound, and looked down at the fire escape. It was a long drop, but it might be her only chance. Her mind raced with possibilities. Should she jump immediately or wait and hope the intruder leaves? Every option felt dangerous, every choice risky. She could feel the fear creeping into her bones, but alongside it, a growing resolve. She was not going to surrender without a fight. She took a deep breath, reminding herself to stay calm, to think clearly. The world outside was unpredictable, but she had to trust in her own instincts and courage. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps on the stairs outside made her freeze. The intruder was moving closer, deliberate and methodical. She could hear the subtle scrape of shoes against the steps, each one drawing nearer. Her pulse quickened, and she realized that waiting was no longer an option. She had to act now. She gripped the window frame tightly, her knuckles white with tension, and swung her legs onto the fire escape. The metal was cold beneath her fingers, but it provided a sense of reality, a tangible path to safety. As she descended carefully, she felt a surge of adrenaline. Her heart raced, but she focused on each step, ensuring she maintained balance. The night air was crisp against her skin, and she realized how alone she truly was. Every shadow seemed threatening, every sound amplified. Yet she kept moving, driven by the need to survive, to escape the danger closing in behind her. She reached the ground and paused, crouching behind a parked car to catch her breath. The street was deserted, the only sounds the distant hum of traffic and the occasional dog barking in the distance. She allowed herself a moment to process what had just happened. The fear was intense, but there was also a sense of triumph. She had taken control of her own safety, relying on her instincts and quick thinking. Yet deep down she knew that this was only the beginning. The danger was still out there lurking, and she had no idea what form it might take next. Her mind raced with thoughts of what could happen. Should she run further, find help, or hide somewhere safe? Every choice carried risk, and she weighed them carefully. The feeling of helplessness threatened to return, but she pushed it aside, focusing on the practical steps she could take. She needed to find a safe place, somewhere the intruder could not follow, and preferably somewhere crowded. The city was usually bustling, but at this late hour, finding safety was more challenging. As she moved cautiously down the street, she noticed a faint light coming from a small convenience store a few blocks away. It was open, and a sense of relief washed over her. She headed toward it, hoping for assistance, for a safe place to catch her breath. The familiar hum of fluorescent lights inside the store felt comforting, a small island of safety in a night filled with uncertainty. She entered, glancing around to ensure no one had followed her inside, and allowed herself a moment to calm down. Inside, the store was quiet except for the cashier, who looked up and smiled. She returned the smile, feeling a small connection to another human being in a world that suddenly felt threatening and unpredictable. She took a deep breath, grateful for this brief respite. Yet she could not forget the danger waiting outside, the unknown threat that had brought her here. The fear had not vanished, only shifted, and she knew that the next moments would require careful thought and courage. She had faced the first wave of danger, but the night was far from over, and the challenges ahead would test her in ways she had never imagined. The girl stayed inside the small convenience store, her heart still racing from the frightening moments outside. The hum of the fluorescent lights felt almost unreal compared to the chaos she had just experienced. She could not shake the feeling that someone was still following her, that the threat had not disappeared but merely lurked in the shadows, waiting for another chance. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her bag, the weight of fear pressing down on her chest. She paced near the aisles, trying to collect her thoughts and calm her nerves. She glanced out the window toward the street, half expecting to see movement, a shadow, or the glint of eyes watching her. Nothing moved, yet the tension remained, thick and heavy, making her stomach twist into knots. Every sound, the creak of the floorboards, the jingling of the store's entrance door, made her jump. Her senses stretched to their limits. As she moved toward the back of the store, hoping to find a quieter corner, she noticed two figures approaching through the door. At first, they seemed like ordinary people, but there was something different about them. They moved with purpose, their posture confident, their presence commanding. Her mind, still on high alert, registered the change instantly. She took a step back, unsure whether to be relieved or wary. Who were they? Would they help her or make the situation worse? The taller of the two spoke first, his voice calm and reassuring, cutting through the tension that filled the room. "Are you okay?" he asked, his eyes scanning her quickly but with concern. There was no threat in his tone, only a sincere desire to understand what had happened. She blinked, trying to process the question, her mind still caught between fear and hope. She nodded hesitantly, unsure if she could trust them. The second man, equally imposing but with a slightly lighter demeanor, added, "We saw something unusual outside and came to check if anyone needed help." His words carried a sense of familiarity, as if he was someone who had faced danger before and understood how frightening it could be. The girl's heart began to slow slightly, a small flicker of hope lighting up in the darkness that had surrounded her. She explained quickly, her words tumbling out in a rush, describing the man she had noticed earlier, the footsteps, and the feeling of being followed. Her voice shook, but she continued, driven by the need to make them understand the danger she had faced. They listened carefully, their expressions serious, nodding occasionally as she recounted the events. Their calm presence provided a contrast to her frantic energy, and slowly, she felt some of the tension in her body ease. The taller man approached the door cautiously, peeking outside to assess the situation. "It looks clear for now," he said, returning to her side. "But we can't be sure it's over. You need a safe place, and we're going to make sure you get there." She felt a mix of relief and gratitude. The fear that had been overwhelming just moments ago now shared space with hope. These men seemed capable, and for the first time since the danger had started, she felt that she might actually be safe. Her pulse began to slow as she realized she was not alone in facing this threat. They suggested moving to a nearby, more secure location, a building that had cameras, other people inside, and multiple exits. She agreed immediately, trusting their judgment. As they left the convenience store together, she stayed close, observing their movements and noting the careful way they scanned the street. There was a quiet strength in their actions, a calmness that spoke of experience and capability. As they walked, the girl's mind began to process the surreal reality of the situation. Just hours ago, she had been living a normal, uneventful day. Now the world felt unpredictable, dangerous, and alive in ways she had never noticed. Yet alongside the fear, there was a growing sense of awe. These men, strangers yet protectors, had appeared seemingly out of nowhere, bringing with them the possibility of safety and the promise that danger could be confronted and overcome. They entered a small building that seemed secure, the kind of place that offered a sense of shelter from the chaos outside. The girl followed closely, her steps tentative but more confident than before. Inside, the lights were warm, the hum of activity comforting. There were people, but none of them seemed aware of the danger lurking outside. She felt a mixture of relief and the lingering tension of adrenaline still coursing through her veins. The taller man gestured for her to sit down. "You're safe here for now," he said. "We'll make sure nothing happens while you're inside." His words were simple but carried weight, offering reassurance she desperately needed. The girl sank into a chair, her body finally allowing some of the tension to release. She exhaled deeply, the first long, relaxed breath since the danger had begun. The lighter man leaned against a counter nearby, offering a small smile. "You handled yourself well back there," he said, his tone encouraging. "It's not easy to stay calm when fear hits you, but you did what you had to do. That shows strength." The girl looked at him, a small smile forming despite the lingering fear. His words were more than a compliment. They were recognition, acknowledgement that she had faced a difficult situation with courage. As they waited, the girl reflected on the day's events. The ordinary morning, the quiet afternoon, the sudden terror. It all seemed like fragments of a story she had never expected to live through. Yet she realized something important. Even in moments of fear and uncertainty, help could appear, and hope could emerge in the most unexpected forms. These men, strangers until a few minutes ago, had become a lifeline, a bridge from danger to safety. Outside, the night continued. the city moving on unaware of the small drama that had unfolded in the quiet streets. She knew that the intruder could still be out there, that the danger was not entirely gone, but the presence of these men changed everything. Fear still lingered, but it was no longer paralyzing. Hope had returned, small but persistent, a reminder that courage and help could arrive when needed most. The taller man spoke again, outlining a plan. They would move cautiously, ensuring the girl was never exposed to unnecessary risk. Every step was measured, every action deliberate. The girl followed, absorbing the calm determination in their movements. She realized that in moments of fear, the presence of capable and focused individuals could make an enormous difference. Their arrival had shifted her reality from one of helplessness to one where action and protection were possible. As they prepared to leave the building, she felt a renewed sense of strength. The fear had not vanished entirely, but it was tempered by trust and the knowledge that she was not alone. She walked between the two men, following their lead, her mind alert but not consumed by panic. The streets outside were quiet, but the city itself seemed alive, as if aware that a small story of survival was unfolding among its shadows. With every step, she felt the weight of her experience settling into something she could understand and process. The terror had been real, but so had the emergence of help. The world was unpredictable, yes, but it was also full of people willing to intervene, to act and to protect. The girl realized that she could carry this knowledge forward, that courage and hope were powerful allies in facing the unknown. By the time they reached a more secure location, the girl felt a mix of exhaustion and relief. Her heart still beat quickly, but she could breathe more freely. She had survived the immediate danger, and the presence of these men had made the difference. She knew that the night was not yet over, that challenges could still appear. But for the first time since the threat began, she believed that safety and protection were possible. As they settled her into a safe spot, the girl took a moment to reflect. The danger she had faced was real, but so was the arrival of hope in the form of unexpected heroes. The experience would remain with her forever, a reminder of how quickly life could shift, how fragile safety could be, and how profound the impact of courage and assistance could be in the most critical moments. She understood now that even in the darkest times there was the possibility of light, the chance that help could appear just when it was needed most, and that survival was often a combination of instinct, courage, and the unexpected intervention of others. The girl followed the two men carefully as they moved through the quiet streets, the tension from earlier still lingering but tempered by the presence of these protectors. Her mind was alert, analyzing every shadow, every sound, but now it was also filled with cautious hope. She realized that she could trust them, that their experience and confidence would guide her safely through the danger she had faced. The taller man led the way, his eyes constantly scanning the environment, watching for any signs of movement. The lighter man stayed close to her side, a reassuring presence that made the fear more manageable. Every step was deliberate, slow but purposeful, as they navigated through alleys, side streets, and empty lots. The night air was crisp, and each sound, footsteps, distant sirens, the rustle of leaves, was absorbed and assessed by their trained senses. They approached a narrow alley where the threat had seemed to linger earlier. The girl's stomach tightened, memories of fear from the previous encounter flooding back. She hesitated for a moment, but the lighter man gently placed a hand on her shoulder, giving a small, encouraging nod. "We've got this," he said simply. The words were both a promise and a reassurance, grounding her in the reality that she was not alone. Suddenly, a shadow moved at the end of the alley. The intruder, bold or perhaps desperate, had returned. The girl's heart pounded violently, fear threatening to take over once more. But the two men did not flinch. The taller man stepped forward, his stance firm, his voice commanding. "Stop right there," he shouted, a tone that brooked no argument. The intruder froze, startled by the sudden authority and presence. The lighter man moved to the girl's side, guiding her slightly back, keeping her safe behind his protective stance. He whispered calmly, "Stay close and trust us. We won't let anything happen to you." The girl nodded, her hands gripping the strap of her bag tightly, but a sense of relief began to spread. She could see now that she was shielded by more than just their physical presence. There was a confidence, an unspoken knowledge that they would handle this. The intruder hesitated, taking a cautious step back, unsure whether to proceed. The taller man advanced slowly, every movement controlled and deliberate, ensuring that the girl remained safe. He spoke again, this time with more authority. "Leave now and don't come back. You are not going to get away with this." The intruder looked between the two men, their combined presence intimidating, almost impossible to challenge. After a tense moment, the intruder retreated, slipping into the shadows, disappearing as quickly as he had appeared. The girl exhaled deeply, relief flooding through her body. Her legs, which had felt weak moments ago, regained some strength. She realized she was safe, at least for now, thanks to the intervention of these two strangers who had become her protectors. She turned to them, eyes wide with gratitude, trying to find words that could express her appreciation. They gave her small smiles, acknowledging her courage and her presence without making her feel diminished by the fear she had experienced. As they continued through the streets, the girl's mind slowly began to process what had just happened. She had faced real danger, yet she had survived. More than that, she had been aided by people who arrived when she needed them most. It was a combination of her own quick thinking and the timely intervention of these men that had ensured her safety. The realization was overwhelming but also comforting. She understood now that even in moments of intense fear, help could arrive, and courage could manifest in unexpected ways. They led her to a safer area, a location bustling with a few night workers and late shoppers. The presence of other people provided an additional layer of security, a sense that the danger lurking in the shadows could not easily reach her here. The girl felt her body relax slightly, the adrenaline beginning to fade, replaced by a mix of exhaustion and lingering relief. She knew the immediate threat had passed, but her mind remained vigilant, aware that the night was far from over. The taller man suggested they find a nearby public place, somewhere she could stay until she felt fully safe. They settled on a small 24-hour diner a few blocks away, its bright lights and welcoming atmosphere offering comfort and reassurance. Inside, the warm smell of coffee and food enveloped her, and she finally allowed herself to sit down properly, her hands no longer trembling as much. She looked at her protectors, realizing that without them, the night could have taken a far more dangerous turn. The lighter man ordered some drinks and a small meal for her, ensuring she had something to eat and drink after the stressful events. While she ate, she felt a small sense of normalcy returning, a connection to the ordinary world that had seemed so distant just hours ago. She noticed the diner staff watching her with curious eyes, and she realized that life continued around her, despite the extraordinary events she had endured. The contrast between fear and safety, danger and protection felt strikingly clear. As they waited, the taller man spoke gently, explaining some steps she could take to ensure her continued safety. They discussed ways to avoid isolated areas, to remain aware of her surroundings, and to trust her instincts. The girl listened intently, absorbing every word, grateful for the guidance. It was not just about physical safety. It was about regaining control over her own life, understanding that while danger could appear suddenly, she could respond with caution, awareness, and courage. Hours passed, and the girl began to feel a sense of calm that had been missing since the initial threat. She realized that the fear she had experienced had been valid, but it had been mitigated by the arrival of help, by the presence of those willing to act when needed most. She had witnessed firsthand the impact of courage, experience, and timely intervention, and it left a lasting impression on her. The world, she understood, was unpredictable, but it was also full of people who could make a difference in critical moments. The taller man checked the surroundings again before they left the diner, ensuring the route was safe. They guided her carefully, every step measured, every movement deliberate. The girl followed closely, feeling protected and confident, a stark contrast to the fear and panic that had dominated the earlier part of her evening. The streets, once threatening and ominous, now felt navigable, safe under the watchful eyes of her protectors. As they neared a more secure building, the girl reflected on the events of the night. The danger had been real and immediate, but so had the response of those who had intervened. She realized that courage could appear in many forms: her own quick thinking, the preparedness of her protectors, and even the resilience that allowed her to keep moving despite fear. The combination of these forces had created a moment of triumph, a successful navigation through danger. Finally, they reached a secure apartment complex, one with multiple security measures and people present even at this late hour. The girl felt a deep sense of relief as they guided her inside. She knew she was truly safe now, at least for the immediate future. She turned to the two men, her eyes filled with gratitude and admiration. Their presence had made all the difference, transforming a night of terror into a story of survival and hope. The taller man gave her a reassuring nod. "You're safe here," he said. "Rest now and remember what you learned tonight. Awareness and courage are powerful allies." The lighter man added, "And never hesitate to reach out for help when you need it. You don't have to face danger alone." The girl smiled, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and relief. The fear of the night had been real, intense and overwhelming, but it had been countered by the arrival of help, by the courage and skill of those who intervened. She understood that the experience would remain with her forever, a reminder of how quickly life could change, how fragile safety could be, and how profound the impact of timely assistance could be. As she settled into her temporary refuge, the girl allowed herself to breathe fully for the first time in hours. The danger had been real, the fear intense, but the outcome had been positive. She had survived, guided by courage, quick thinking, and the intervention of those who arrived when she needed them most. The night, once threatening and uncertain, now held a sense of possibility, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, safety, help, and hope could appear unexpectedly, transforming fear into relief and gratitude. The night had finally settled into a calm that felt almost unreal after the events that had unfolded. The girl sat in her temporary refuge, a quiet apartment in a secure building, and allowed herself to breathe fully for the first time since the danger began. Her hands, once trembling with fear, now rested calmly in her lap, and her racing heart had slowed to a steady beat. She leaned back in the chair, staring at the dim glow of the room and reflecting on the night she had survived. Her mind wandered back through the series of events, the sudden realization of being followed, the fear that had gripped her in the alley, and the adrenaline that had surged through her body as she navigated the streets. Each moment felt vivid in her memory, the terror and uncertainty mingling with the sharp clarity of her instincts and quick thinking. She realized that she had faced danger in its rawest form, yet she had survived, guided by both her own courage and the timely arrival of help. The presence of the two men who had intervened repeatedly filled her thoughts. They had arrived like a force of reassurance, their confidence and skill cutting through the panic that threatened to overwhelm her. She could still see their expressions in her mind, the calm determination, the unwavering focus, and the subtle gestures of encouragement. Their intervention had not only provided physical safety, but also restored a sense of control and hope that she had felt slipping away. She thought about the small lessons embedded in the experience. The first was awareness, the importance of paying attention to her surroundings, of trusting her instincts when something felt off. She realized that fear was a signal, a way for her mind to alert her to danger, and that acknowledging it without letting it dominate her decisions had been crucial. The second lesson was the value of courage, not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Each step she had taken, each decision to move had been an act of courage that allowed her to survive until help arrived. The third lesson was the power of help and human connection. She had been reminded that even in moments of intense fear and isolation, there were people willing to intervene, to act when necessary, and to provide protection. The men who had saved her were strangers only a few hours before, yet their actions had created a bridge from danger to safety. She realized that survival was often a combination of personal courage and the timely assistance of others, and that recognizing and accepting help was not a weakness but a strength. As the night continued, she reflected on the emotional journey she had experienced. The fear had been raw and consuming, leaving her feeling vulnerable and small. The arrival of hope had shifted her emotions gradually, first to cautious relief, then to confidence, and finally to gratitude and awe. She understood now how profoundly events could shape one's perception, how quickly emotions could swing from despair to reassurance, and how meaningful human intervention could be in the process. Her thoughts also turned to the city around her, the environment that had both nurtured and threatened her. She thought about how the streets that had once seemed familiar had become a maze of uncertainty, and how the very same city now held a sense of safety in the presence of other people in secure places. She realized that her world had not changed in a physical sense, but her understanding of it had deepened. The night had revealed the unpredictable nature of life, but it had also shown the capacity for resilience, courage, and assistance. She considered the intruder, the source of the fear that had upended her evening. The danger had been real, and she acknowledged the lingering unease that still resided in her chest. Yet she no longer felt powerless. She had survived, and the world had demonstrated that while threats could appear unexpectedly, there were forces, both within herself and in the form of others, that could counter them. The experience had instilled a sense of empowerment, a reminder that vigilance and courage could coexist with hope and relief. Her thoughts shifted to gratitude. She felt it deeply, not just for her physical safety but for the presence of the two men who had intervened. Their timely actions, calm demeanor, and unwavering focus had created the difference between fear and survival. She realized that gratitude was not only an emotional response, but a recognition of the interconnectedness of human actions. In the face of danger, the presence of someone willing to act responsibly and courageously could redefine the outcome entirely. As the hours passed and the city outside grew quieter, she began to think about the future. She knew that the memory of this night would remain with her, a vivid reminder of both fear and hope. She considered the importance of preparedness, of awareness, and of trusting her instincts. She also understood the value of community, of people willing to intervene when necessary, and the profound impact of human courage and connection. These lessons would shape her approach to life moving forward, influencing her choices, her awareness, and her interactions with the world around her. She also reflected on her own resilience. The fear had been intense, but she had acted, moved, and survived. She realized that resilience was not the absence of fear, but the capacity to continue in spite of it. Her quick thinking, her ability to navigate danger, and her willingness to trust in the support offered by others had combined to create a moment of triumph. She felt pride in herself, a quiet acknowledgement of the inner strength she had discovered in the face of adversity. The girl thought about how ordinary life could be transformed by extraordinary events. A simple day filled with routine and predictability had shifted into a night of fear, uncertainty, and survival. Yet, in the midst of the chaos, she had witnessed human courage, compassion, and protection. She realized that life was unpredictable, yes, but it was also full of opportunities for growth, learning, and connection. Each experience, even the frightening ones, carried the potential to shape her understanding and strengthen her character. As dawn approached, the girl felt a sense of closure beginning to settle over her. The danger of the night had passed, the immediate fear was gone, and she had survived intact both physically and emotionally. She thought about the lessons she would carry forward, the importance of awareness, the value of courage, the impact of timely help, and the strength found in gratitude and reflection. These lessons were now a part of her, embedded in her understanding of the world and her place within it. Finally, she allowed herself a moment of calm gratitude, letting the tension of the night dissolve. She knew that fear could return, that life could present challenges in unexpected forms, but she felt prepared to face them. The night had tested her, but it had also taught her the profound importance of resilience, awareness, and human connection. She realized that even in moments of darkness, light could appear through courage, intervention, and the simple presence of others willing to act.